My name is Lila Morgan. I'm 36, raising my daughter, Ivy, on my own. I used to think I understood what it meant to hit bottom. I was wrong. There's always another level beneath it, one that smells like cheap cider, polished floors, and the quiet sound of people choosing not to intervene. It happened on New Year's Eve at my father's place, the yearly gathering everyone pretended to enjoy. The television blared countdown specials, paper horns littered the coffee table, and tension hung in the air like smoke. My stepmother, Elaine, had been making her usual remarks all evening. Little comments about tradition, about who truly belonged, about how certain seats were meant for real family. At 11:47 p.m., I remember checking the clock just to avoid looking up. That was when the front door opened. My half-brother's daughter rushed in late, glittery dress swishing, excited and loud. Elaine's expression shifted instantly. She stood, walked straight to the dining table, and stopped behind Ivy. "That seat is for my granddaughter," she said clearly, for everyone to hear. Ivy froze. She was sitting in the same chair she'd used every year since she was old enough to climb up on her own. When she didn't move fast enough, Elaine grabbed the chair and yanked. Ivy fell hard, her knee hitting the floor. Her hat slipped off. A glass tipped over, pale bubbles spreading across the white cloth. No one spoke. Not my father. Not the relatives crowded around the table. 20 people watched in silence as my child cried on the floor. That moment erased the last excuse I had for staying quiet. I took Ivy home, cleaned the bruise on her knee, and held her until she slept. Then the past came rushing back, every ignored slight and unanswered question lining up neatly, demanding to be seen. My parents split when I was small. My memories of my father faded slowly, missed weekends, forgotten calls, until he was mostly a voice on holidays. He remarried when I was 5. Elaine seemed warm at first. She smiled easily, cooked elaborate meals, and my father appeared lighter around her. 2 years later, their son, Mark, was born. That's when the balance shifted. Elaine took control of the household and, eventually, the business. My grandmother, Ruth Morgan, had built a small wooden toy company from nothing. When she passed, she left the company to my father and established a trust for her grandchildren. It was spoken of vaguely, like something distant and untouchable. Elaine said she was good with finances. My father let her manage the books. Mark grew up surrounded by opportunity. Private schools, elite camps, music lessons, sports gear. College was fully paid for, followed by a new car and a leadership role inside the company. They called it securing the future. My path was different. Public school. Part-time jobs. Student loans. When I asked about the trust helping with tuition, my father brushed it off. Elaine would gently remind me not to add stress to his life. I applied to work at the company after graduation and landed a low-level admin job. Everyone starts somewhere, Elaine said. Mark, meanwhile, was given his own division. I married too quickly, divorced faster, and became a single mother. I worked long hours elsewhere to keep us afloat. Still, I showed up to family holidays, smiled, and swallowed the discomfort. Elaine never let Ivy forget her place. Mark's daughter, Lily, was celebrated endlessly. Ivy was taught gratitude for whatever scraps of attention came her way. Every time I asked to see documentation for the trust, Elaine intercepted. "I'll look into it." My father nodded along. I stopped pushing. Until that night. After New Year's Eve, I went home and opened a drawer I hadn't touched in years. Inside was an old flash drive my grandmother had given me shortly before she died. "Keep this," she'd whispered. "You may need it." I plugged it into my laptop. The files were old, bank records, scanned letters, legal notes. At first, it all looked ordinary. Then patterns emerged. Transfers to unfamiliar entities. Funds labeled as management fees slowly draining the trust. Emails discussing reallocations for family needs. Nothing screamed theft outright. But together, it told a story. By dawn, I'd taken notes and saved copies. I contacted the estate attorney listed on the documents, Mr. Collins, and sent a careful message asking for a review. The fallout was immediate. My father and Elaine showed up the next morning. Mark followed soon after. Phones rang constantly. Banks, accountants, suppliers. The calm facade cracked. Elaine accused me of snooping. Mark shouted. My father pleaded. Then the legal threats arrived. A formal letter accused me of defamation and interference. Elaine offered an alternative: sign an agreement retracting my concerns and everything would go away. My father came alone one evening, photos in hand, asking me not to ruin what he'd built. Mark took it online. Posts about loyalty, about greed, about protecting family legacy. Strangers weighed in. Friends grew distant. Even school pickups felt heavy with unspoken judgment. I nearly gave in. But then a message arrived from my cousin Aaron, who had once worked in production management. Elaine had pushed him out years earlier. He still had records, contracts, emails, inflated invoices. Suppliers willing to talk. The puzzle pieces locked together. Mr. Collins confirmed it. The trust had been mismanaged. There was a clause transferring control to me if misuse was proven. He was obligated to report irregularities. Audits followed. Accounts were frozen. Investigations widened. The company staggered under scrutiny. Mark went silent. Elaine hired specialists. My father looked smaller every time I saw him. Months later, the findings were undeniable. Funds had been siphoned through shell companies. The trust had been treated as a personal reserve. Control was transferred to me. Legal settlements followed. Elaine resigned from the company. My father stepped back. I didn't celebrate. I focused on Ivy. We moved into a modest place closer to her school. I set up her education fund properly this time. I rebuilt quietly, carefully. Some family members apologized. Others disappeared. My father calls now, uncertain, polite. On the anniversary of that New Year's Eve, Ivy asked why we don't go to Grandpa's house anymore. I told her the truth, simply. Because sometimes, I said, protecting yourself means walking away. She nodded, accepting it more easily than I ever could. For the first time in years, I slept without that old weight on my chest. Not because everything was perfect, but because I finally chose not to stay silent.